Well, I'm Riek Machar Teny. I never expected to go back to bush and to fight again. We plan no coup, we plan no rebellion.
Welcome back to Celebs Watch 211. On March 26, 2025, the news of the arrest of the first Vice President of South Sudan, that is Dr. Riek Machar Teny, spread on various social media platforms like wildfire. While some netizens took this news lightly, others believed that Dr. Riek Machar had indeed been arrested. This was confirmed through a press statement issued on the same day by Riek Machar, who's the current acting chairperson of National Committee on Foreign Relations at the SPLM-IO. The statement reads, and I quote, "We strongly condemn the unconstitutional actions taken today by the Minister of Defense and the Chief of National Security, who, alongside more than 20 heavily armed vehicles, forcefully entered the residence of the first Vice President. His bodyguards were disarmed, and an arrest warrant was delivered to him under unclear charges. Attempts are currently being made to relocate him. This act is a blatant violation of the Constitution and the revitalized peace agreement, as no legal procedures such as lifting his immunity have been followed. The arrest of the first Vice President without due process undermines the rule of law and threatens the stability of the nation. We hold President Salva Kiir responsible for this reckless abrogation of the peace agreement and call upon the regional and international community to urgently intervene to prevent further escalation." Honorable Riek Machar, acting chairperson of the National Committee on Foreign Relations, SPLM-IO. From this statement, we can clearly see that Riek Machar has not been arrested. However, he might be under house arrest. This is because, in the statement, the chairperson clearly indicated that his bodyguards were disarmed and an arrest warrant was issued to him. The other thing that can be deduced from this statement is that no arrest or no charges have been laid so far, so it's unclear under what circumstances the first Vice President is being arrested. So, keep it here for any updates on this developing story, as I'll keep on bringing you more stories regarding the same issue and any development around the Nasir and Ulang counties fights, as well as what steps and actions the government is taking to contain the situation. The government in this case is not only the SPLM-IG but also all the signatories to the revitalized peace agreement, including the SPLM-IO, SAO, and other political parties within the country. The United Nations Mission in South Sudan, that is UNMISS, also issued a statement urging the political parties to stick to the revitalized agreement on resolution of conflicts in South Sudan. The statement reads in part, and I quote, "Tonight, the country's leaders stand on the brink of relapsing into widespread conflict or taking the country forward towards peace, recovery, and democracy in the spirit of the consensus that was reached in 2018 when they signed and committed to implementing a revitalized peace agreement," said the Special Representative of the Secretary General and Head of UNMISS, Nicholas Haysom. Unilateral amendments by parties to the agreement that jeopardize the hard-won gains of the past 7 years risk returning the country back into the state of war. This will not only devastate South Sudan but also affect the entire region. UNMISS also urged the politician or the political parties to put the best interest of the citizens of South Sudan at the heart of whatever they do, so that they don't fall back on acting on their selfish interest, but instead to look out for the common good of all the citizens of the country. Let me know what your thoughts are regarding the security situation in South Sudan at the moment, not just within Nasir and Ulang counties of the Upper Nile state, but instead across different regions and parts of the country. Also, what do you think should be the best way to go forward with getting a solution to whatever situation we are currently in? Is arresting individuals the right way to go about it, or are we skipping some steps? Also, what role do you think having a dialogue would have in easing the current tension across the country? Do you think the South Sudanese politicians should just put their ego aside and do something that's going to be for the benefit of the entire country for once?
Salam alaikum. I have very short remarks. As you heard, I share the governance cluster, and this chapter is under the cluster. So the historical background that has been stated by Dr. Martin is clear. I don't need to repeat it. And also the work that has been done by the technical committee, I don't need to repeat anything about it, but I just want to say this is a very important occasion, because peace without justice always do not last, but peace with justice lasts. And this chapter is now trying to come up. We were supposed to have tackled this chapter in the first or just 3 months after the transitional government was established. But because of many difficulties, it took a long time. The technical committee was established in March 2022, and now, due to the extension of the 24 months, we are now embarking on it. And we are happy that the technical committee has carried out consultation. And this conference is going to be the final consultation for those who are experts, so that we can have legislations to effect the implementation of this chapter. We were hoping that the Rome talks were going to yield good results, and that our brothers who have not signed the peace agreement and who have made statements, declaration of principles, that by this time they would have signed their version of what they see as a resolution of the conflict in South Sudan, and that then they would come and participate in this process. Unfortunately, the last round, we didn't reach an agreement. The participation would have been very important, but we hope they also participate in the next coming conferences, the economic conference, the governance conference where we will talk about federalism, and the conference on constitutional making process. Because all the issues of reforms are contained in these 4 conferences. And anybody who has issues to raise, we would have liked them to participate in these conferences. So I hope the next 3 conferences we would have their attendance with us. Thank you very much.
This is their first video interview since they fled Juba.
Well, I'm Riek Machar Teny. I never expected to go back to bush and to fight again. We plan no coup, we plan no rebellion.
You know, the world calls it rebels, rebellions, and so on and so forth. He's not a rebel. We did not rebel against anything. We were pushed out of our home because of fear for our life.
We wanted reform. I said I was going to contest presidential elections, but because he knew he was going to lose the presidential elections, he created this conflict.
No matter what the differences were going to be or the issues, in my mind, they would be addressed through dialogue, through democratic processes, not this.
The wrath of Salva Kiir is now being expressed on the net.
It's a country in crisis, serious crisis. And that's why I was saying I'm hopeful that we will, and I'm confident, because if we don't move upwards and we move downward, it will be worse than Somalia.
Salva Kiir needs to account for the ethnic cleansing that happened in Juba. You know, he needs to account for that. The difficulties of reconciliation, and just what I have made is outlining what we are doing on the process of national reconciliation. But truly, reconciliation is the most difficult to achieve, particularly in a country that has fought for a very long time. Sometimes in an armed struggle, you would be fighting the person you think is the oppressor. Sometimes you would turn against your own selves when you differ. This happened in our case in South Sudan. As SPLM, we had gone through several splits. In 1983, we had a split on just what is it we are fighting for. In 1991, we also had another split. And that polarized our society. Last year, August 8th, I was invited to a function to remember the death, or the burial actually, the burial. We had celebrated the commemoration of the death of our first leader, Dr. John Garang. But on the 8th of August, this is when we buried him. So I was invited to that commemoration. And suddenly I realized our communities are still divided on the issues of the struggle, of the split. Because in the split, we fought each other. I led a faction, Dr. Yon led a faction. And the conflict was so intense that innocent people died in the process. So in that function, I told the gathering that, well, we have achieved the objective, but we have not achieved reconciliation because our people are still divided. It needs us to take bold steps so that our people can reconcile. And I offered my apology to people who were affected, or those who were affected either their kins died in the intense struggle of the same movement, or their kins got displaced, or they lost property. This is important so that we as one nation can move together. But the difficulty is in that such apologies sometimes do not get the blessing of all. There will be somebody who will say, well, if you apologize on acts done under your leadership, then who will apologize on acts done on the other person's leadership? Now that's a big problem with us in South Sudan today. And we are also asking assistance in this, because there are people who have gone through such a process, whether in the Eastern Europe, the old Yugoslavia. The struggle among themselves was also intense, similarly like our struggle in South Sudan. So we would want to be assisted by people who have undergone such a process. Our society is highly traumatized because people who have been subjected to war for over half a century, they know nothing, only violence. And that was manifested last week when a large group of youth attacked, in a retaliatory attack, another community. So I always say our society is violent. It is not only the society itself, the institutions that we are heading, there is simmering violence in it. We look at our police, you see also violence. When you send an army on an operation, they mete out unproportional force on the society. So there is a trauma running through. And I remember in 2004, while we were about to sign the Comprehensive Peace Agreement, one university professor from Kenya warned me and said, look, you have been at war for long, you have been in opposition for long, it might be good for you, even the leadership, go through counseling. Your society needs that counseling. Day by day, when I see acts in my own community, within South Sudan, I find this professor right. This forum, the movement of moral rearmament, I think would be very helpful to us if by one way or another conferences of this kind could be held in South Sudan. Our people may start to speak out, and in speaking out, this would help them. The trauma would be addressed. The process of reconciliation would be even easier. Some of us think maybe if we did truth and reconciliation commission that would do it, it might help. Then others will say no, it might aggravate the process. So when we talk of national reconciliation, behind us lies this inhibition. How do you handle it? You may do programs, that may address it, that may even aggravate it. So this is our major challenge in South Sudan, particularly that we have been subjected to a long war. Well, I don't want to go further than this. I want to thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, and the fact that we're coming in a bigger number. It means we need assistance from this eminent organization. Thank you very much.